Good morning. My name is Kat Yee, and I am the Creative Pathways lead, joining you all today in Vancouver on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm also your moderator for our Greet10x session, Real Careers in Film and TV. So thank you so much for joining us today, including our educators and districts across the province. Some quick housekeeping. This session will be recorded. So if you need to leave early, those who have registered will receive a link afterwards when it's ready. And we'll also live on the Creative BC's YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please write those in the Q&A, which is available at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll get to as many as we can once the formal part of the presentation is finished. You can enable closed captions for the session. We have two transcribers with us today, Ali and Callie. You can also follow along on this link if you prefer to look at the transcript. And I'm going to put that in the chat. We are grateful to be joined today by 5 talented experts in their fields to spotlight some of the many unique careers in this industry. Cindy Yeung, editor and producer. Brian Do Chua, voice actor. Tyrone Dorsey, driver. Maiko Gomyo, special makeup effects artist. And Ivona Ries, second assistant camera. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Question 1, in a nutshell, how would you describe let's start with Cindy, if that's okay with you, what an editor and producer does?
All right. Those are essentially two different jobs.
I know.
But so as an editor, I'll start with that first. That's kind of my main background. An editor is the person who takes all the footage after filming. It's all done filming, and then they are the ones that take the footage and assemble it all together. And they are actually part of a whole post-production team. So it's not only the editor, there's like assistants, there's post supervisors, coordinators, sound editors, designers, composers, colorists. And so there's a large variety of jobs within post-production itself. And the editor is kind of one of the earlier stages of it where, you take all the footage, you watch everything, you put it together. If it's scripted, then you follow the script and you find the best performances for each take. If it's documentary, then you're like cutting down interviews and going through the footage to find the story kind of thing. So that's an editor in a nutshell. And then as a producer is someone that oversees like all the stages of the entire filmmaking. So starting from the script, working with a writer, or setting up a writer's room to finding funding, a lot of grant applications. That's the main part of what a producer does a lot is the funding and the budgeting. And then to the actual production and assembling the team and finding all these other great people that are part of this panel to like make the film happen, and then finally taking it to post-production, packaging, and then distributing the film. So they're kind of the ones that are almost like a catch-all and make sure the whole process happens as a whole. Yeah.
Did you have an aha moment when you knew that working in that particular department was for you?
That's a good question. When I first started in film, I went to Emily Carr, which was an art school, which is an art school, and film had room. So I went in there without knowing what I was getting into, but it was really fun. And I think it was one of the sound classes I had that really nailed in what really ended up like making story, and good sound design is invisible, but it enhances all the story. And that was kind of like, oh, it finally clicked for me. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
Thanks, Cindy. Maybe we'll hop over to Ivona if that's okay to talk about being a second AC. Can you describe what that does? And also, when was your aha moment that you knew you could work in film?
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Okay, so second AC first stands for second camera assistant. So essentially, a second camera assistant is the master organizer of the camera department specifically. We basically organize everything that happens on set, even just before we start going to set, organize all the gear, organize ourselves with schedules. So we get schedules from the AD department. We help set up and take down gear. We move a lot. We have everything on carts essentially. So that helps us move from set to set. And then we also have a big camera truck that holds all our gear, which helps us have everything overnight or move to further distant locations. A big part of my job is also making sure that everything stays powered. So batteries and stuff like that. And essentially, I'm kind of the lowest of the assistants. So my job is to assist everyone above me. So that means my direct boss is a first assistant. They're the ones I work very closely with. I also help assist the operator and then the director of photography. And some other things are slating. I'm in charge of slating, which keeps everything in sync and helps the editing team at the end of the day when everything goes to post-production, and also marking, helping the actors know where they have to go. And then my big aha moment was when I was a teenager, I was involved in a lot with photography and just making small videos and stuff. And I really just didn't know what to do out of high school. And then my dad once said, go to film school. So I ended up going to film school, and I just absolutely loved it. I love everything to do with cameras. I love the teamwork. And now I love going to amazing new locations. I've worked internationally and across Canada, and seeing really cool things along the way, working with animals, big stunt sequences and stuff like that.
Nice. I'd like to hop over to Brian, if that's all right. And Brian, what does a voice actor do? And when was your big epiphany about working in this industry?
Thank you, Kat. Hi, everyone. I'm a little under the weather today. I'm not gonna lie, so I can't demonstrate anything today, unfortunately. But basically, what a voice actor does is we provide essentially voices for different characters in animated series, video games. Um, we also provide narration for various audiobooks, let's say, as an example, documentaries. Um, Telling stories through commercial voiceover, whether that be on radio, digital ads, etc. So there are a lot of different branches of voiceover that are available to people. I do a fair number of the various branches throughout my career. And again, just really quickly on that, I always really encourage people to be as versatile as they possibly can in this industry, which is why I always encourage people to branch out as much as possible. As far as my aha moment, I mean, I always just loved watching cartoons as a kid, to be completely honest. Back when Saturday morning cartoons were still a thing, and I found out that this was a career path when I was a kid. And so I took a class. I just took a class. I tried it when I was about maybe 16, 17 years old and just fell in love with it. I was already really involved with my arts programs in school when I was younger. Um, uh, Drama, band, choir, all that stuff. And voiceover specifically was the one thing that I really wanted to pursue. And so that was really the aha moment of me going, well, yeah, this is it. And yeah, I've been around ever since.
Nice. Thanks, Brian. Trey, we'd love to hop on over to you. If that's all right. Can you explain to us your role in film and when your aha moment was as a driver? Oh, sorry, not. There we go.
Yeah, so as a driver, as a driver, you come in contact with a lot of different departments. I started out my career as truck driving, and that's sort of a lonely kind of job. You're driving across the country by yourself. So it was a bit intimidating coming into a film set with so many different people, so many moving parts. But having said that, I think that's the part that I like the most. It's like your first day of school. You're a little bit anxious, and then by the end of the week, you're cracking jokes with everybody. So that's sort of how it happened with me. And then my aha moment was, I think, when I got my first paycheck. No, I just playing around. No, but just after working in conjunction with everybody, and it was a high-paced environment at some times, but then there's other times when it's more relaxed and you get to meet people and get to know people better. And that was my experience.
Nice. Thanks, Trey. I'm gonna hop on to Mo, but before I do that, sometimes a picture tells 1,000 words. So I'm just gonna share my screen briefly, and you can guess at maybe Mo's career job there. So Mo, gonna stop sharing screen. Can you explain what a special effects makeup artist does after we have all seen that photo and when your aha moment was?
Yeah, we generally tend to kind of focus on realism and, making a body part look real or an animal look real, or to make sure that a creature is moving in a way that mimics nature so that the audience can kind of believe that creature or the fantasy character to exist in the story, at least to get sucked into the story. We are part of the makeup department in the union, so a lot of us are also, regular makeup artists. And then the rest of us just focuses on special makeup effects, and we work in shops as well, which is where we build the prosthetic pieces or the entire creature. It's not, all that stuff isn't built on set. So a lot of that happens in the lab, and we take it to set, and then that's when we sometimes for 45 minutes, sometimes a 6-hour application onto the actor, and sometimes we don't really know what we're, sometimes it seems like, oh, is that our job? But then they explain to us how it works in action and why they wanted us to take over. And sometimes digital, company gets involved, and with technology, a lot of different approaches are taken. And a random thing will be somebody just asking me to build a realistic fish, so it doesn't rot on set, right? And sometimes it's gags, like bleeding gags, where an actor starts bleeding on camera, so we attach almost like a plumbing system throughout the whole body, make that work on camera. And my aha moment is just as a kid, I was really into Jim Henson and like Star Wars characters, and these fantasy characters really got me into this business. And when I started painting in the business, which took me a couple of years before they could let me paint, that's when I really felt like I loved every ounce of this job.
Nice. Everybody has, as you've probably noticed, such unique journeys into this industry, and that's a really exciting thing about working in film. We'd love to hear more about how each of your jobs in film are specialized and require different knowledge, skills, and abilities. So what are some of the essential courses, training, and sort of like the hard and soft skills people should develop or look into if they want to work in your department or role? Maybe we'll loop on back to the top, back to one, as they like to say, with Cindy.
So in terms of editing, one of the main things to learn would be the editing software, and that would be the hard skill. And some of the main industry standard programs is called Avid Media Composer. So that is basically an essential requirement to get hired in the industry. And it's actually a program that was sort of designed in consultation with a lot of editors. So the way that it's designed and organized, once you learn the program, it feels really smooth to edit on. So that's partly why it's stayed popular for so long. So any courses, even like online courses, like even the one that used to be lynda.com is part of LinkedIn now, they still have a good base Avid Media Composer course that you can take online that is just good to learn the interface. And there's other programs that are used too, like there's Premiere from Adobe, and occasionally Final Cut Pro and DaVinci. And so any courses, even online, that teach these programs are good to start with. And even YouTube would have online tutorials for these. And the other thing to understand first, if you're interested in post-production, is that raw footage from a camera often is really big. Like we shoot at least in minimum 4K now, but like 6K, sometimes 8K. And then, you know, they might want to shoot anamorphic or something else. And so in order to be less taxing on your machine, all the footage needs to be kind of processed and transcoded. And then you sync it with sound that's recorded separately. And then you organize it all before you can start editing. So basically, to learn about production, you kind of start with that step. You first learn how to manage the footage. And a lot of the entry-level jobs start there as well. And producing wise, because it's more about an overview of the stages of film, and a lot of it is budgeting and applying for grants. So you do end up like writing, making pitch decks. So a bit of like image design skills are helpful if you know a little bit of Photoshop or something similar. And definitely like, you know, some like spreadsheet program for budgeting, like Excel. So being good at some of these like word processing programs as well, it's kind of like the basic skills. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's hop on over to the camera department. Back to Ivona.
Yeah. Okay. So, training wise, if it depends which route people want to go. You know, there's a couple of routes to take. The professional kind of camera union route is joining ICG 669 as a camera trainee. We hold trainee programs once a year. I'm also the member at large for our 669 second AC category, meaning I'm kind of overseeing or helping out all second assistants in Western Canada. And so the trainee program is kind of the best route to get into the camera department. We train you everything that you need to know when it comes to hard skills. We go over all the technical stuff, everything that you need to learn to become a second assistant, essentially. Another route is film school, kind of like what I did. A lot of people go to film school. You get to meet a lot of people that are very like-minded. A lot of people also then go into the indie world for a little while, the independent film world. So you work on smaller budget stuff or some just shorts and stuff like that. There you really just get to work as a very close-knit team and whatnot, and really meet a lot of people. So that's also a fun route. And you kind of get to experiment a little bit and get to play around with other departments even. And then when it comes to hard skills, you know, a lot of that stuff is mainly just tech-wise. When it comes to cameras and stuff like that, we're always reading up on new technology coming out just to make sure that we're up to date on everything. Learning about lenses, that's a big one. You know, we're handling lenses all the time. Even as a second assistant, if you're aspiring to be a first assistant, knowing about lenses, or a DOP, you have to kind of know about lenses, what they do, you know, just how the light comes through them and whatnot. There's a lot on YouTube. There's a lot of books out there. And then another big one is just knowing how to follow instructions. And then some soft skills, and this is stuff that unfortunately I can't teach you. You have to figure that out on your own, is communication, interpersonal skills, teamwork, problem solving, adaptability, which is huge. And we talk about that all the time in the trainee program, and time management. So, you know, and this is something that you can do on a daily basis, just with everyday things, just to kind of work on it, because multitasking is huge in the camera department. I do a gazillion things at one time, and it's just part of it, but I personally love it. And so if you're someone who also likes that, that's probably something you might be interested in. Oh, and sorry, another course that has really helped me along the way is conflict resolution. It is very important to learn how to talk to people when they are angry. That's all.
Those are all really good points, and I'm sure all of our panelists will agree that no matter what department you're working in, you need to have those soft skills. Trey, would you like to add on to that in terms of Teamsters 155, which is the union representing, or even your role in film that you worked in?
Well, conflict resolution, I'll chime in on that one because currently I'm a union rep. So I represent all 8 divisions of our local, which is transport, security, catering, animal wrangling, animal handlers, marine unit, automotive, and miscellaneous. So conflict resolution, when working in conjunction with so many different unions, sometimes there could be issues or jurisdictional issues that need to be resolved so we could all work in unison with each other. So that's my current job right now. But as for hard skills to get into the transportation department, you would need a class 1 driver's license. And then having that, the rest you would need to actually learn on the job because you're working with special effects, you're working with the camera department, and each piece of equipment has special requirements and responsibilities. Like the camera truck needs to be plugged in all night so their batteries are all charged up. So once you get your class 1 driver's license, that would get you in the door as far as being a driver. And then there's driving cast, driving all the different pieces of equipment that would be on a film set.
Thanks, Trey. I think one of the things that people should be mindful of in this industry before we go to Mo is at some point, it's very important to consider getting a driver's license. So if you are able to do that, strongly encouraged. You may find that there are some roles where you can take the bus or bike and obviously do that safely. But sometimes you are filming in distant locations where it's just not possible. So that is just a reality of working in the industry. And thanks, Trey, for bringing up the driver's license aspect. Let's go over to Mo.
When it comes to getting into special makeup effects, there's much like the other departments, there's people take different paths. And some people will try to get an internship in a shop if that's where you want to end up. And sometimes, one would become a part of the union as a makeup artist. And then as a makeup artist, you still do little scratches on the face, little bits of blood and things like that. And then a lot of those talented makeup artists have shifted over to doing special makeup effects as well. There's so many different areas under special makeup effects to specialize in. For example, we have people in the shop that specialize in mechanics, for dealing with animatronics. And these are people that they're not just brilliant in mechanical things, but they understand facial movement and, what they need to build and what has to fit under a structure and overall design. We never want to bulk out the head any more than, we need to just to have that extra movement on the face. Things like that. And we have people that are brilliant, hyper realistic sculptors, and these are people that really, really have developed their skills throughout their life. And it's not to do with a course that they took, but most importantly, I do think that you should be an artist and that your passion is to paint, to sculpt or to fabricate 3-dimensional art. Things like that really helps. And I don't necessarily think that you need to have special makeup effects portfolio in order to be hireable in a shop, especially to start out. I think I've seen a lot of people that just shows up with illustrations of fantasy characters or just people, portraits and animals. A lot of that shows what their focus has been, as an artist. And of course, there's always ways of going through places like Vancouver Film School and things like that. But some of the shops in town that does sometimes take on internships. And again, getting an internship is kind of like applying for a job. So you do want to show up with something if you want to be considered for those roles. And there's a shop in Langley called The Amazing Ape, ran by a talented Burner. And Masters Effects isn't right in town in Burnaby. And I think that they tend to take in more internships as well. And I think it's a great way to see if that's where you really want to be. And then going back to some of the makeup artists that shifts over to doing special makeup effects. If you go to the IATSE 891 website, you can click on makeup and it'll tell you what you need under your belt to join the union.
Thank you for that. Brian, let's go over to you here.
I am going to need you to repeat the question, Kat, because I
no
was
problem.
so entranced with all of these fabulous answers. I've just been listening and just scooping it up. So if you could please repeat it. I have a lot to say, but just so that I'm 100%
sure. So each of your jobs require different knowledge, skills, and abilities. What are some of the courses or hard and soft skills that people should really be developing now or look into taking courses on, et cetera, to work in this industry or your department?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, at the end of the day, there's so much that I have so much to say about this. So, we say voice acting, right? And I always say, and a lot of us always say, that acting is the most important part of voice acting. So, if you can do a lot of different silly voices, that's a good thing. Don't stop doing that. But if you can't act and tell a story throughout the entire episode, right? So let's say, or convey a multitude of different emotions, right? Understanding story structure, all of those things. To be blunt, you're sunk. And so I really encourage people, I really encourage them to really study the craft of acting. It doesn't have to necessarily be voice acting specifically. It could be theater, study theater, go to the theater, take improv classes. Maybe you want to try on camera. All of that stuff is accumulative. I tell people all the time, if you want to get into voice acting as well, additionally to the acting training, maybe take singing lessons, maybe take improv lessons, maybe take voice and speech lessons. I have a voice coach that I work with maybe once or twice a month, just to make sure that things are working really well. Right now, they're not working too great, but that's okay. Right, just because I've been so under the weather with this bug that's been going around in Vancouver. But so that's a big component of it, right? And know that with any creative medium, it is going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. I tell people all the time, I booked my first professional job 4 years in to studying acting. It took me a while. But I continued on because I just loved this art form and this craft so much. I really couldn't do anything else. So I just kept going and kept going. And through that, I also just met a lot of different people and networked and eventually started to develop a name for myself. So in terms of just like acting ability, I would say that that's the most important thing. Acting ability and understanding your voice, your instrument. As far as other skills are concerned, another thing that I think is really important now that isn't really talked a lot about in our industry because of the way our industry has gone, especially over the last, I would say, 5 years because of COVID, in BC specifically, is learn like audio editing, learn how to record yourself, learn how to, or just be mindful of like, you're gonna want to have a decent, don't spend a lot of money, especially when you're starting out, but you're gonna want to have a designated recording space. It could just be your closet with clothes, that's fine, right? If that's all you can make work for now. But I would really encourage people to learn how to edit audio, because when we record auditions, back in the day, we used to go into studio to audition. A lot of it now, about 99% of it is we record from home. And so because of that, and that's fine, right? That's just the name of the game. And so because of that, I really encourage people to have not necessarily a background, but a decent understanding of audio recording and editing. I don't want to say audio production per se, but you should know how to edit your own audio. As far as soft skills are concerned, I have a friend in town who always says, like, be professionally likable. And so that's always stuck with me. You develop a good reputation in town for being professional and polite, and you show that you care and you're just fun to be around. People are going to bring you back. So even if you mess up on the day, the chances of them bringing you back again because it's like, oh, well, he was so nice and there's potential there, right? Or she or they were so nice, there's potential there. Maybe we'll bring them back in, right? There is a level of that. But the last thing people want is to work with someone who isn't a very nice person. And I'm choosing not to use colorful words because we're recording. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Thanks for the question.
If you're interested in exploring more of the careers that have been mentioned here, I know this is a really high level spotlight. I'm putting a link in the chat on the Creative Pathways website where you can click and learn more. But all of our panelists have just mentioned some critical skills, especially many of you new entrants should be looking out for when you want to get into this industry. And one of them, for sure, just to reiterate, is having a good attitude and being willing to learn. And it can feel scary, but being willing to say, I don't know the answer to that. Can you show me or can you teach me? Everybody's always willing to show a beginner that information. So thank you for all of your answers there. Let's do a little bit of a show and tell or a show and describe of some of the unique pieces of equipment and gear or even software. I know some of us have mentioned some of the software already that each of our jobs would be expected, the royal we, our jobs as if I work in your jobs, but what each of your jobs would be expected to have. And if you could explain what these items do. So we might just go over to Ivona first, if that's all right, for second AC.
Absolutely. I don't have anything crazy exciting. I can maybe bring out a lens if people want to see a lens, but what I did bring is a slate. So this is, oh dear, hold on, let me do the blur. Okay, a slate. So this is a specific time code slate, it's called. And essentially when it's on and plugged in and stuff, sound will generate a time code. When we open the sticks, it will show numbers, which is actually the time of day, and it's continuous. And then when we close it, it'll actually show the date of whatever day we're shooting. Essentially what that's doing is we use this to sync sound and camera because they're on two separate systems. So then when it goes to editing, that gets put together. And with that, they use the time code to put it together. It's the easiest. If for whatever reason the time code is not available, we clap our sticks like that. So that loud clap, they're able to see the spike in editing. So then that's how they put it together. And then we also put information on here from a script supervisor pertaining to the scene of the script so that editing again can stay organized and how to actually put the whatever movie or show together based on script numbers and stuff, because we always shoot out of order. So they just get kind of like a jumbled mess, and hopefully our notes and our slate make it easier for them. Then we also use a lot of tape. And when I say a lot, like I mean a lot. I get really nerdy about tape because there's a lot out there. This is just an example of this very small tape stringer, but we have all the colors. And I mean like all the colors. There's probably like 10 to 20 colors. We have cloth tape, we have paper tape, we have 1 inch, we have 2 inch, we have even half an inch. We have like different gaffer tape, different specialty tape, like Gorilla makes all sorts of different like weatherproofing tape. And for the most part, we use tape to mark actors. Once actors and the director figure out where they need to go, I come in as a second assistant. I lay marks down. And essentially when actors come back after they've done hair and makeup, for example, they know where to go again because it can be a really big process. And sometimes actors need Just a bit of a reminder because maybe a lot of time has passed. It also helps the camera operator, for example, know where to move, because if we have a big dolly move and such, a mark will help everybody kind of meet in the same place, and it'll help the DOP and the grips and lighting be able to light the set so that the actor is always lit and not in shadow. Should I bring a lens or are we
We have
good
time
there?
for maybe one more, just really
Okay.
quickly. Let's
2
swing one.
seconds. I'll go
I
grab
think
a lens.
folks might be familiar with your kind of camera lens, but a camera lens can look quite different. This is the point where sometimes again, I was saying to people like, we should have a music in the background. Oh, there we go. Well, hey.
Okay, I brought a lens. This is just a very simple lens. This is actually a very old lens that have become very popular. It's more timeless. This is a Cooke S4, it's called. Take the caps off. This is a 50 mil, so it's a prime, meaning it's just one focal length. A zoom has variable focal lengths and they come in at different ranges. But it's a pretty heavy lens considering maybe like, I don't know, 4 pounds. So they can get pretty hefty. Like there's lenses that are like this long sometimes, you know. So we need a lot of support and whatnot. And sometimes the lens is even bigger than the camera nowadays, especially. Sorry, I ran. I'm a lot of breath. But yeah, so this is just something that we have to learn how to use, how to properly use, how to safely use, because a lens like this can run around $20,000 for one lens. So we deal with just a lot of very expensive equipment. So part of the learning and the training program, for example, is just learning how to handle equipment like these lenses and how to make sure that they're safe and don't get ruined. But yeah, anyways, that's all.
Thank you so much for dashing off. But that's a perfect example of, if you don't know and you're new, ask, because as Ivona was saying, if you damage one of those lenses, that is maybe a car. It can be. We are going to go to Mo next. Do a little bit of show and tell.
So I kind of skipped over the boring looking, tons of bottles and glues and things like that. I try to find something that is kind of considered interesting. I think every makeup effects artist, especially ones working on set, will have a mini compressor and multiple airbrushes, because it really speeds up the process of blending an artificial prosthetic to blend into somebody's skin. And I do a lot of, even if I'm in the shop slash lab and painting creatures, this is my workhorse. This is what I use to create different patterns that where we mimic nature. So we're always kind of collecting pictures of amphibians and existing patterns in nature or reference on human skin. And we're trying to mimic that using different tools. Airbrush isn't the only way, but it is our workhorse. And just an example of how facial prosthetics starts to get created is we take an impression off of the actor, which allows us to locate, where their tear duct is and what their skin texture is like. And this is what we sculpt onto to create prosthetics, and also sometimes just to design and do a mock-up to show the director to okay, and then we finesse it. And then this is something I got early in my career, is obviously a very small scale bust instead of having a real size one, to practice sculpting. Because even a creature design, everything gets sculpted onto a human head or the actor's body form. So this really got me started on trying different designs and how to, and to make sure that you can mold that is another thing that we pay attention to. And then one quick, this looks like a plumber rig here, but sometimes depending on the show, our car, my SUV is full with the seats down, and sometimes I just show up with a tiny little, a small box of tools. And I mentioned earlier with blood rigs and things like that, this is an example of a prosthetic piece that has been sculpted and molded and slightly colored to match the actor's skin. And all this stuff comes off, and these thin edges that you see is what blends into the skin. And we use color and glue to try to blend it in. And this is an example of a blood rig where a tubing is running through their body, and we push it through, sometimes with compressed air, sometimes just with a syringe to make the actor bleed. Yeah, that was what I thought was maybe interesting to show.
Nice. It's always cool to know how things are made behind the scenes. It's like, aha, where did they hide that?
Yeah.
Like to go to Brian next.
Hi, yeah. So I am going to share with you my website. I think one of the most important things, and there's a little preamble to this. One of the most important things I would say in a voiceover career is your voiceover demo and a place to put your voiceover demo. A voiceover demo being what that is basically it's either an audio or, if you've been working for a while, a visual sample of your abilities, your range, your character range, vocal range, all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to go Google Chrome. And so this is what I use to promote myself. And essentially, I just have all of my audio demos right at the top. Feel free, if you want to check them out later, you can. I just, for the sake of time, I'm not going to play anything. But so the audio demos are there. There's a little bio about me. I have visual demos of professional selected work that I also use to promote. At this point in my career, that's what I'm using. I'm, primarily getting my team of agents being repped in multiple markets across Canada and the US to essentially use these to promote me and tell people that I'm available. I also have, unfortunately, I'm not in it today, but I have this home studio that I call the Skybox Spaceship, also known as my shower, because when I'm in it, I look like I'm in a shower. But it's basically where I record all of my auditions. I have a designated recording booth that I got during COVID, and I basically have all of my specific recording specifications available as well if people are interested, like potential buyers are interested, producers, etc. I have a couple more specs, a little description about my voice, a selection of characters that I play, client list of various, companies that I've worked with, and then my photo and a little contact page and representation is my website. I have a one pager. I keep it simple. I know people that have multi-pagers. When you're starting out, there's nothing wrong with getting a one pager. If you're strapped for cash right now, I would recommend carrd.co, card.co, as a way to build a free website. It's basically just like a little business card. You can put voice demos on there, a little bit of information, contact info, etc. Just to get you started. You don't need to buy a domain name. You could to make it look nicer, but again, when you're starting out, you're starting out. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. And we're going to go to Trey.
Well, I don't have any props to share with you or anything like that. But hearing all for instance, Mo with all her equipment, and one thing Mo and people in hair and makeup would like for when the truck arrives, the hair and makeup trailer arrives, that everything is in the place where they left it and not all over the floor. And Ivona, is it? She does not want her camera lenses banged around and stuff like that. So when driving these pieces of equipment around, you have to realize that there's very expensive equipment in there. A lot of camera equipment, hair and makeup, wardrobe. So you want everything to arrive in one piece, organized and not all over the floor. So the people can get to work and not have to scramble around and fix up the trailer or what have you. That's what I'd like to share with you.
Definitely a critical good start to a good day. Thank you, Trey. And off to you, Cindy.
Yeah, well, for both, you just need a computer, really. It's nothing exciting at all. But for editing, I have a kind of a widescreen monitor. Otherwise, if you don't have a widescreen, you can just have kind of a monitor or two monitors set up. Just because the edit program sometimes can take a bit of space, and you want to be able to see all your bins and stuff like that. And then we have a third kind of smaller playback monitor. It's just another monitor, but then that's what we wire to like display the footage full screen on that screen specifically, so you can watch the footage in detail and make sure it's not out of focus, or like you can notice like some things that pop up sometimes, whether the boom came in a little bit and stuff like that. So that's kind of the base. The main thing about the computer is like whether it's a laptop, anything, like you just want to make sure your computer has enough memory, RAM. And to be honest, with the footage that comes in now, they're just like so big. It's important to have at least 64 gigabytes of RAM, and that's just for editing. Like if you get into like special effects, like VFX and stuff like that, you're gonna need more. And so I think that's the main thing to have in terms of editing setup. Yeah.
So it's very accessible for people who are just starting out to start practicing, which is great. We're going to hop on to our next question here, which is our favorite project. I'd love to hear from some of you, and if it's okay, I'm going to show a photo of Maiko's work. That's right. And I'll give you a chance to talk about it. Some of you might recognize this, and when you see it, maybe you know. So Maiko, what are we looking at here? And why is this one of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Yeah, this was on Series of Unfortunate Events. In the first season, Neil Patrick Harris played Count Olaf, and Count Olaf goes through different disguises. Even Count Olaf as himself, he wears a full, well, he started off wearing a full bald cap. His whole head was basically in silicone, and with smaller facial pieces on his face. And we played around with dentures. This was a project where the actor was really, really into it. There was no forcing him to sit down to get through this. He really cared. He got to the point of, sounding like us when it came to talking about the softness of the pieces to accommodate his big facial expressions. He would say, what, let's plasticize that by, 120% this time. Or, he just was so into it that it really made it, when we did something in between our shooting schedules to accommodate his needs, he really noticed it and appreciated them. And he really played around with it with his facial structures or facial movements, and which, with that movement and the prosthetic piece moving with his face with such grand, character movements, expressions, it really sells the look. And it was a lot of fun that each episode had a different look, which was a different challenge. And he was so into it that just to cut back on time, at some point, whichever episode in the first season, he just shaved his head. So we can just skip that full, bald cap and things like that. So that was a fun project for me.
Nice. Annie, let's go to you here. I'm going to still share an image. I believe we have a poster of a project you've worked on.
Yeah,
We're looking at here.
This is Arthur Erickson Beauty Between the Lines. It came out of it's now on Knowledge Network. It came out earlier this year. And it is about the Canadian architect Arthur Erickson. It's actually his centennial year. And so we kind of did a new overview of kind of his greatest works. Um, and the team was great. So that's why it's one of my favorites. Really great team, made up of people who like to crack jokes and eat good food. And good at problem solving, of course. But the main part I wanted to bring up was because in a documentary, as an editor, you are part of the writing process as well. You're going through interviews, you're going through footage, and you're trying to tell the story together with the directors and the producer, and you're making selections and saying, okay, the childhood part about his life, let's put it here and let's start here, and so you're part of all that writing process, which is really fun for an editor to work on. And so, yeah, that's one of my examples.
Working in film is amazing. The people often make the project. I'm going to go to you, Trey. What's your favorite project?
Well, I have a few of them, and the reasons why is because in the transport department as a driver, you don't really work with the actors too much unless you're a cast driver. But so it's largely the crew, and sometimes there's a synergy that starts to happen with the crew, and everybody gets along, and then that ends up being a fun experience, So for the most part, it's just there's been different shows that I've worked on, and I could tell the energy was just on a different level. Everybody got along. Whether there's always going to be problems that you have to overcome, but when there's a good group of people around and everybody's focused on the goal, the problems don't really seem as big as they really are. They get solved. So yeah, for me, that's what stands out for me.
Well said. Brian?
This is my safe answer when people ask me this question. I was the love interest to Twilight Sparkle on My Little Pony for a year and a half. And that was just a real treat to work on something that so many people watch. I got to record an entire Netflix animated film with the majority of the cast in Vancouver, and the Vancouver voice community is just so accepting and just wonderful and fun to be around. Really any project where I get to record with my colleagues is just a fun time. But that one stuck out to me because I was also pretty green as well at that time too in my career, if I recall correctly. And so again, was just met with so much acceptance and had a great time.
Nice. Thanks, Brian. And last but not least, Ivona?
Sorry, I wasn't that prepared that I have any pictures. But a couple of, I guess, fun things. It's always fun to see your name on the big screen. So most of the shows that I've done in the last few years have been features. So it's a lot of fun to go to the theater and at the end see your name on the big screen. But one thing, I actually live in Calgary. So one of the biggest things that I get to do is I get to do a lot of mountain shows. And to me, that's just the ultimate fun experience. Even in the winter or the summer, doesn't matter to me, but I've worked in some really cool locations on top of mountains. Getting gear up there is, excuse me, always very exciting. And just playing around with all sorts of different ways in order to do mountain shoots. We work very closely with the transport department, and we get to ride on skidoos or different cats, just to be able to get to some really amazingly remote locations that most people have never been is always awesome. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job.
Oh, all right. So thank you for that. For last question, we're going to try to squeeze everybody in here. We're going to rapid fire. So Cindy, we're going to go with you. And I am going to also just share a resource because I feel like because you're part of the Vancouver Post Alliance. That is a great one for people to visit. So just one sec here. Do you want to talk more about that as I
Yeah, for
share that on
sure.
the
Yeah.
screen?
So the Vancouver Post Alliance, it's an organization I'm part of as well that's dedicated to the post-production community here. And they do, networking events. They do mentorship things, programs, and they're trying to basically make a community for all the post-production people that work in the industry here. And they have a page under resources that you can go to called Career Pathways that you can see here. And it has all the different types of jobs that are actually under post-production, including visual effects. And so like there's tons of areas if you're interested in post besides editing that is very interesting, from like music to like sound, all that, and to like coloring and online and doing the technical stuff of it as well. The VPA also has a great Coffee with a Mentor program. And so you don't need experience. You just need to apply and say which area you might be interested in. And they will pair you up with someone that works in the industry, and you go for coffee for an hour and you learn about what that person does and their job. And it's just a great way to learn more about what they do. So and I saw like that's one way. And I saw that Creative Pathways website actually has a video on editing as well. And for producing, there's so many ways, and part of it is learning to be a PA and getting on set, seeing how the set is run, and it's a lot of applying for the entry-level jobs to learn about it. Another way is similar, to reach out to producers or assistant producers and learn what they do. Or there's like festivals here that run yearly in town, like Run and Gun and Crazy Eights. And those are actually good ideas where you could reach out to the producers that are making those shows and ask if you could shadow them or talk to them to learn about like what a producer actually has to do, even on a more independent level. And it's kind of like a good entryway into seeing how things are run as well.
Thanks, Cindy. I know I kind of put you on the spot there without a preface, but essentially what I was getting Cindy to answer was sometimes we don't know where to start in terms of looking for resources for new entrants. And the VPA, as Cindy was saying, is an amazing resource for you all to check out. That's a great way to build community, find people, find opportunities, mentorship, and all of our other panelists as well have some really great specific resources for people who are just starting. So I'm just going to go around quickly for rapid fire. And I might just, mix up the order a little bit. But Brian, do you mind if I go to you next? And then Ivona, and then Trey, and then Mo?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so really quickly, rapid fire. For new entrants, are there any, is it like list of resources that haven't been mentioned before yet in our panel, or communities that people should check out to find opportunities to meet other people if they want to break into voice acting or the industry?
Yeah, so I have a lot of online resources that I send out to people. Excuse me. I want to be a voiceactor.com. I don't know him personally, but D. Bradley Baker, he was the Goldfish on American Dad. He's all of the clone troopers on Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and Bad Batch. He does all the creatures on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like the guy's crazy. He wrote and created this comprehensive site that just gives as much advice to someone who wants to start out as humanly possible, all in one place. And so I recommend, if anyone wants to get started, they read everything on that site. It's a fantastic resource. The more I think about it right now in this moment, that's the number one thing that I would recommend. Yeah, I think you can also, if you want to learn more about voice demos, you can go into Voice Casting Workbook. Google Voice Casting Workbook. I think it's voice.castingworkbook.com specifically, where you can listen to the various agents and their rosters, all of the different demos that they have. And I would really recommend that if you're curious to hear more about what those sound like, because I did talk about that earlier. As for community building, I don't have a lot. There are a couple of really great schools that you could check out. The drama class is great. They're an online school. On the mic training is great. Yeah, that's all I got. That wasn't as rapid fiery as I thought it would be.
It's okay. It's all good. Rapid fire means different things to different people, so it's all good. Ivona, do you want to go next there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned earlier, the biggest things is, I mean, if this is kind of, you want to do this, film school is a great option, and there's lots out there. There's also just even like summer classes and courses and weekend courses and whatnot. There's also lots of different master classes available online, like even through YouTube and whatnot. Kind of just explaining different things and how camera department works and stuff like that. And then if this truly is a direction you want to go into, ICG 669 training program is the next step, I would say. This is where you go through a program that lasts about 2 years. And you go on different productions as the trainee, and we basically teach you everything. Another way to maybe get into it too is sometimes rental houses hire floor technicians, is what we call them. And you basically get to help prep different crews getting ready for shows, essentially. And the big ones in Vancouver are Sunbelt Camera, ARRI Rental, Keslow, and Panavision. Those are kind of the big four. And then there are smaller ones too. There's like Lauren Lapham, Raw. There's some other ones. Anyways, if you just Google even like rentals Vancouver, like camera rentals Vancouver, a bunch will pop up. But people are always hiring, and that's always a good way to meet new people and just get your hands on some gear. And we teach you some stuff as well. That's all.
Nice. Thank you. Great.
Like I mentioned before, Teamsters, we represent 8 divisions: transport, security, catering, animal wrangling, marine unit, automotive, and miscellaneous. Miscellaneous would be working with transport coordinators, helping them. Automotive would be fixing some of the equipment, vehicles that are on set, picture cars and stuff like that. Marine unit, anything to have to do with water, if you're interested in stuff like that. Animal wrangling, trainers, handlers, if you're into animals and you like that kind of thing. Catering, if you're into cooking. Security, and then transportation. I know a lot of drivers that are cast drivers, and then they also are background performers, or they're also do a side gig as acting. So you don't necessarily just have to be a driver or anything like that. You could get into the industry and kind of feel your way around to see what you would, you prefer to do. Or you can do a couple different things. On one show, you could be a background performer. On the next show, you're a cast driver. So there's a couple of different, it's not so cut and dry. I'd just like to say there's a lot of different opportunities, and it's building those relationships. And once you get your foot in the door, you start meeting people and other opportunities arise. And then you might be doing something that you never even thought you would enjoy. And that's the best thing I like about this industry, is that, something can just come out of nowhere and it's like, hey, you know what? I came out of my comfort zone and I want to do this now, So dip your toe in, see what it feels like, and then dive in.
That's some really great advice, especially for our new entrants here. Last but not least, I'd like to say, Mo, any resources that haven't been mentioned?
Yeah, no, I did mention them already, but yeah, I would say just for people that don't necessarily want to go so deep into special makeup effects right away, and trying to get an internship at a shop, as I mentioned before, IATSE.com with our local A91 is going to tell you much about how to get into that makeup department. And for people that are really serious about creature design and building big prosthetics and really, really getting into that, there is an online course called Stan Winston Online Course. And they tend to have specials with working professionals, very, very well established artists. sharing tips and advice and how to do things. And there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that can really give you an idea as to what a makeup effects shop would do. You can check out Studio ADI channel. They can show you everything they've done in the past few decades. And I think that should give you some good ideas.
Thanks, everybody. We are at noon now. It's 12:01. So I'd just like to formally wrap here and say some words. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to flash a brief QR code on screen. I'd love you all to just zap it and tell us what you think. While you're looking at that, we really hope you found this session inspiring and really grateful to our panelists again for sharing their insight in their careers. You can check us out on creativepathwayscanada.com and follow us at Creative Pathways Canada to keep posted on opportunities and information about the motion picture industry. Let's stop sharing here so you can see us all. Stay tuned for more Greet10x in the future. I'm going to leave the last message today to one of our co-sponsors, George Richard and School District 83, to speak specifically to the high school educators and students joining us today. George, take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kat, and I will make it brief. This is our last province-wide virtual seminar that School District 83 is doing for this year. I just want to thank all the teachers and students that have joined in and made these sessions so successful over this time. For those teachers who do wish to learn more about next year's programming, or if you have great ideas for programming that you would like to share, you can please contact me of what is listed in the chat, and I'll see it right there. So once again, you can text or call 778-824-1188, or you can email me at grichard@sd83.bc.ca. So on behalf of CAT, Creative BC, our 5 panelists, and myself, thank you for attending this session on real careers in the film and TV industry, Cook's Jam and Ilie.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Kat. Thanks to the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
As well.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.